What's going on, folks? Today we're going to take a look at a new semi-automatic precision rifle in 6.5 Creedmoor from Rock River Arms. Let's take a look. So first off, this rifle is completely unloaded, nothing in the chamber and no magazine. Now, I don't really show myself unloading rifles on the review table. They're always going to be unloaded unless I'm pulling it out of a carry system, in which case that's fine, and I'll tell you that. But that aside, this rifle is part of Rock River's LAR-8M series, and that whole series is kind of their AR-10 platform of rifles. I'm a little bit hesitant to call this an AR-10 because AR-10 actually refers to the Armalite Model 10. And when people say AR-10, typically what they're meaning is an AR-15 style rifle scaled up to a .308. So you've got, standard AR-15 type of controls, but in a much bigger platform to match the .308 Winchester or 7.62 by 51. So Rock River has been making this type of rifle for quite a while and obviously has lots and lots of .308 versions of this rifle. New for this year are the 243 and the 6.5 Creedmoor, which is what I tested. Now, this was a T&E gun. I'm not being paid or sponsored or anything like that for this review video. This is a T&E that I requested and that Rock River generously provided for me to test out just to get my thoughts on it. So like I said before, it's an AR style rifle, kind of the purpose semi-automatic precision rifle. Maybe you want to use it for hunting, maybe you want to use it for target shooting, maybe you're getting into PRS style matches, maybe not super uber custom PRS, but you're wanting to get into that long range competition. You're just wanting to shoot far. You're wanting to take a gas gun, you're familiar with the AR-15, and you're wanting to say, okay, instead of hitting 200-300 yard targets, let's go out to 6, 7 or more, which you can do with the 6.5 Creedmoor. Now, prior to this rifle, I didn't have a lot of experience with the 6.5. I'm kind of a dork about studying ballistics, and I like kind of the ideal calibers. And that's why, whenever there's a new caliber that's supposed to be that ideal cool thing, I get excited about it. Like the 300 Blackout. I was probably one of the... I was shooting the 300 Blackout before it was super popular, and I still really like that round, but it's a bit of a special purpose round. Kind of the same with the 6.5 Creedmoor. It's not going to be nearly as generic or versatile as the .308, but it does one thing really well, and that's long-range precision. So I was pretty excited when I saw that Rock River was building an AR in 6.5 Creedmoor. Now, lots of people are starting to do this, but Rock River is known for making very accurate rifles, so this one caught my attention. Now, I've obviously shot lots and lots of AR rifles before, but this was the first AR platform rifle in 6.5 Creedmoor that I've really put a lot of trigger time behind. And just for the short story, it was a great experience. This was a fun rifle to shoot. It was pretty reliable, and the 6.5 is definitely a cartridge I'm gonna be using more. It is a very efficient round, a very accurate round, and just a lot of fun to shoot. So one of my first impressions about this rifle that I ultimately ended up completely changing my mind about was the fact that it included a case. At first, when I went to go pick this up from my FFL and I saw that it came with a molded hard case, I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that a rifle manufacturer is doing that. Now, all handguns come with a case, and recently a lot of shotgun manufacturers are now coming with the cases that, you take off the barrel so it breaks down a little bit smaller. I know Beretta and Benelli and Stoeger and that group has done it for a while, but now we're seeing Brownings and Winchesters and those shotguns coming with cases, and a lot more are coming with those. So when I saw an AR that did that, I thought, that's cool. I haven't seen that before. And it's kind of funny that it's, the stereotypical bright blue case. I think either FN or, yeah, it's probably FN. Somebody did it first, but I now know that, if you're cool in the gun world, you gotta have a just annoyingly bright blue case. Walther does it, Smith & Wesson does it, FN does it. Everybody's got their ridiculously bright blue case. And it's got stainless steel latches on it that are pretty cool. So when that first arrived, I thought that was pretty cool. It's already got a case. But then when I opened up the case and saw that the rifle, basically they just used the takedown pin and opened up the hinge pin just to fit the rifle in two different halves inside of this case, I mean, that makes sense. That's how they can fit it in there. But it means after you take the rifle out and put it together, you can't put the rifle back in this case if it's got a scope on it. And I think with a 6.5 Creedmoor with a 20-inch barrel, you're gonna be running a scope on it. So this case was kind of an oversight that it didn't allow room for a scope. So ultimately, I would rather save the money on this ABS case. I'd rather save 40 or 50 bucks to put towards my own case that actually would accommodate the rifle with the scope than to pay for this one. So that's a feature that at first I thought it was really cool, but now I'm like, that's kind of a waste. I'd rather save money on the rifle than pay for this case that is now just gonna sit in my closet useless until I decide to sell the rifle or whatever. Any gun that I have that's got glass on it, especially a precision rifle, needs to be able to fit in a hard case. And since Rock River's case doesn't work with a scope on it, what case did I go with? I went with this Plano Gun Guard. This is actually their double rifle case. It's super durable, really heavy duty. It's a glass-filled nylon, which makes it really rigid, really tough. Makes it pretty heavy though. Now this is a double rifle case, so it's designed to fit 2 standard bolt actions or 2 shotguns even. But as you know with ARs, if you're running a pistol grip hanging off the bottom and a scope hanging off the top, on top of a long rifle, it takes up a lot of room. So you pretty much have to use a double case like this to get it done. Now while this case is really rugged and really durable, and frankly after I flew with this thing, I always get so nervous about flying with a rifle just because this thing gets tossed around. But after I flew with this, the rifle was right on. So I was really impressed at how well this case held up. But it's a pain in the butt to haul around the airport. This thing is heavy and clunky, but there's nothing super convenient and light and quick about it. Although the case Rock River provided with their gun was a bust because it didn't fit the scope, I do like that in the case they provided stuff like this, like these little gun sponge, and like a pack of LPS wipes, and like just some cleaning chemicals to try. And now while the case adds extra expense that I don't think is really recouped, most of these are provided just kind of as promo supplies by LPS or by these other manufacturers. So it gives you a chance to try other products that they recommend, that they know work well with their rifle, just kind of as a freebie. So I think it's cool that they include this. Now of course it also comes with the instruction manual, the warranty card, and you know the stupid little lock that come with every gun. But I like that they throw stuff like this in there as well, just to give you more things to try. I think that's good on Rock River for just kind of throwing stuff like that in there just because they can. So let's talk about my setup on this rifle really quick, and then I'll go into all the features, kind of working from the back end, just working from the buttstock all the way up to the muzzle device, just so we can kind of cover every part of this rifle. So my setup, I feel, is pretty characteristic of how this rifle is intended to be used. It's a long range or medium range precision rifle. So of course pretty much everybody's who's going to use this is going to use a scope. I don't think anybody's going to buy a rifle like this, spend $2,000 on a 6.5 that offers really good accuracy and then put iron sights on it. So this is the new TruGlow M&S 4-16. It's a 30mm tube. It's got an MOA illuminated reticle and MOA locking target turrets. Now this isn't a $3,000 competition scope, it's a sub $500 scope, but it is a very accurate, very precise scope and works well as a good test bed optic. Now the mount is the Aptus mount that comes with the scope, and it actually comes with this quick throw lever too. So no modifications to the rail or anything like that, just mounted the scope very carefully directly onto the rail. Now since this is a precision rifle, I think a lot of people are going to be running this with a bipod just for increased stability, and so that's what I did. This is just a Harris style bipod. What I really like is that this is, it's got the pivoting lock, so you can lock it down or you can loosen it up so the whole rifle can actually tilt and pivot a little bit. This means that if you're shooting on ground that's not perfectly level, you can actually compensate for that angle a little bit to level your rifle. So if you're looking at a mount like this, I would highly recommend going with a pivoting model. And this even has stepper legs in it. meaning the legs have different increments. You don't have to extend them all the way out or all the way in. They have little half-inch steps so that you can use it at a variety of levels. That combined with the pivoting feature makes a pretty stable bipod. To kind of mate the two together, I used a Yankee Hill Machine swing swivel adapter. Now, some of the bipods that mount directly to a Picatinny rail aren't quite as stable in my opinion, and with a rifle that's fairly heavy like this, I wanted to use a big solid adapter. So that's why I went with that Yankee Hill. I didn't have any problems with that. It was a very stable adapter, but this isn't a review about the bipod or the adapter. Just identifying what I put on there and that it was pretty solid and pretty successful. So let's talk about accuracy, because I think that is a really, really important reason as to why somebody would even consider a rifle like this, especially in the 6.5 Creedmoor. There are lots of AR-10 style rifles in 308 that are quite a bit cheaper and much easier to find. And in the AR-15 profile, there are tons of options that are still pretty accurate, but way cheaper. And heck, I even build my own a lot of times, and they shoot pretty decently. So 6.5 is known for its accuracy. So somebody looking at a rifle like this is definitely going to be looking for an accurate gun. If you're not familiar with the 6.5, there's tons of info about it, but the short story is it's basically a 308 cartridge neck down to a 260 Remington. And because 6.5 was designed pretty much as a precision round, there's no plinking 6.5 ammo. Pretty much all the manufacturers are fighting over kind of the same piece of the pie. Everybody wants to create that decently affordable but very accurate round. And because of that competition, that means there are an increasing number of very accurate and surprisingly affordable 6.5 cartridges on the market. Now, what I was shooting was this Hornady ELD match ammo, and I found this ammo to be very accurate. They make it in several different weights. I think they make it in a 123, a 129, and a 140, and I was shooting the 140s. I also shot the 129. I have not shot the 123. So Rock River says that this rifle is 1 minute of angle just right out of the box. No break-in period, right out of the box, 1 minute of angle. Now, there's a lot of myths about the break-in period of rifles. Some rifles supposedly require significant break-in periods of time with maybe even 100 rounds of ammo. Some require a box of ammo or less, and rifles like this claim that they don't need any break-in period at all. And I actually found that pretty much to be true on this gun, and that's because it's got a lapped barrel. So by lapping the barrel, they take out any inconsistencies in the rifling. Basically, they go ahead and just smooth that out, get it where it needs to be, ahead of running any bullets through it. Because by breaking in the barrel, that's really all you're doing, is you're just lapping it with a bullet. So I found there to be no real break-in period. It was pretty much very accurate right out of the box. Now, Rock River claims that this rifle will shoot 1 MOA just right out of the box. No alterations, just as it is. As long as you have good quality match grade ammo or similar, good quality ammo, it should shoot 1 MOA. And did I find that to be true? Well, actually, yeah, pretty much. I was shooting just over a minute, but I think some of that might have been me. But in terms of the rifle, could I see that this rifle is capable of 1 minute with factory ammo? Yeah, and with hand loads, I would say even less than that. It was surprisingly accurate for a gas gun. I would say for the same, just dollar to dollar, bolt actions tend to be a little bit more accurate, or are at least capable of better accuracy. But out of this gas gun, I definitely would say that this is a MOA capable rifle. I was shooting about 1 inch at 100 yards, and I shot this out to 400, 500, and 600. And you know, my groups did change a little bit, and a lot of that gets into wind, not necessarily the rifle. So the shorter ranges are a little bit better gauges of how the rifle's really gonna group. But for a gas gun, when I shot a 5-inch group at 400 yards, I was pretty excited about that. That's pretty good for an AR profile rifle. Starting with the buttstock, this is a pretty standard AR-15 style design. It's definitely Rock River's own brand, but it looked very familiar to me. I don't know if you recognize it, but this is what I immediately thought of. Can you see that side-by-side comparison? This is the Magpul MOE rifle stock. The angle on the comb is very similar. The length is the exact same. The height is the exact same, and even the plastic material feels like the same substrate there. This is a little bit, they've cut a little bit more material away from it, and some of that is because it does not have the folding compartment like the Magpul magazine has. Now, do I stuff a bunch of crap in here? Usually not. The only thing I'll keep on there is maybe my tack stamp for a suppressor, maybe some extra batteries if I'm using an illuminated optic, but I tend not to put a whole bunch of stuff in there. So in terms of the profile of the stock, pretty much exactly like the Magpul MOE rifle stock, but it's Rock River's own brand. I don't know if they manufacture it or somebody makes it for them. Now, there are two different stocks that can come with this rifle. There's this one that's the fixed comb, then they actually sell another one that's got an adjustable cheek riser. I didn't have a whole lot of trouble using that one, but I generally default to more adjustability, especially in a precision rifle, being good. So I would have liked to have tested that one. No errors with this one. The stock seemed really strong, really sturdy, but if you want a little bit more, it's probably worth it to go to that adjustable stock. Now, if you really know that you want a PRS stock or a Luth AR or something like that, I would say go with the cheapest option so you can take this one off. It's just a standard mil-spec tube under there, so you can take it off and put any AR style stock on there. So if you know already that you really like a PRS stock or a Luth AR or something like that, then go with the cheapest one so you can take this off. But I didn't have any issues with it. It seemed to be a pretty sturdy, pretty reliable, albeit plain stock, but it worked well for me. Next feature we're gonna look at is the charging handle. Nothing fancy here, just pretty much a regular AR design. It's got one unlocking tab, not two. I'm a lefty, so I always like the ambi ones, but I've grown so used to using these that it's not a big deal for me. I wish they had gone with an extended one, like the Raptor or one of those other designs that sticks out a little further, just because I think everybody's always going to be putting a scope on this gun. So anything that can help you reach around the scope is always better. Now this is definitely usable, and I've got enough eye relief on this scope that it's not hanging way out. So it's definitely very usable, but nothing particularly interesting or special. And maybe they did that just because that's what most people are used to, and anybody who wants something fancy is going to put their own in there. It worked. I didn't have any problems with it. It always locked up when it needed to, and it always charged effectively, but nothing fancy. It just works. Next up is the pistol grip. Now, I don't know if Rock River manufactures this component themselves or they outsource this to somebody else. What it reminded me of was a Hogue rubberized grip, which in my opinion is a good thing. It's got that really tacky rubber that helps you maintain a really good grip, and it's even got some texturing on here if you want to grip it really well. Now, most precision shooters aren't going to have a super aggressive grip. They're going to just very lightly hold this. In fact, a lot of shooters will even run their thumb on the other side. I didn't have any problem with this grip. It seemed to work just fine for me. Now, I do want to note that this grip, unlike some others, doesn't have a little secret compartment in the bottom. It's just hollow, but I think that's fine. On a precision rifle, I'm not going to be sticking crap in there because I don't want anything rattling around. So the grip was comfortable, worked great for me, easy to use, no complaints there. This rubberized texture, I actually really like it on pistol grips, but I don't like when it's applied to the buttstock, because when your face gets all sweaty, it tends to rub weird and it tends to grab my beard, and I don't like it on the buttstock. But on the pistol grip, it's actually a desirable feature in my opinion. I like that they also included an extended trigger guard, so in case you're trying to shoot this gun with gloves or you just want a little bit more breathing room, there's definitely more than ample room in there, and it's very friendly, very easy to reach the trigger comfortably. And very important on a precision rifle is the trigger itself. Now, this is Rock River's proprietary two-stage trigger. This is their own manufacturer. They sell this as an individual component that a lot of people put in a lot of other rifles, frankly, because it's good. The trigger was definitely one of my favorite features of this rifle. It had very little travel, very little take up, and it was very crisp. There are definitely lighter triggers on the market, but I would not replace this trigger if I was buying this rifle. Now, in a lot of my ARs, I've got a Geisley SSA Enhanced. I've got a Rise Armament 3-pound single stage, I've shot several Chip McCormick's. I've shot mil-spec triggers. The mil-spec ones, I get them out of there pretty quick. But I've shot a lot of nice triggers, and this is one that I would not replace. Rock River does a very good job with this 2-stage. Let's charge it just so I can show you the trigger itself. Now again, the rifle is safe. Verified that there's nothing in here. So the trigger, it's a 2-stage, so it's obviously got some take-up. But after you get to that take-up, it's just a complete brick wall. And then just a little bit of pressure with hardly any over travel. Let's look at the reset. Pretty firm reset. Quite a bit of movement in the reset, but it's a very positive click. It's really obvious when you're there. It's not as long as some others, but for a precision trigger, you know, you're not going to be shooting super fast with this. So I think it's very appropriate for the function of the rifle. So that's a great trigger, and it was a great experience shooting that, and I found that trigger definitely helped my accuracy. Because it's an accurate rifle. The trigger itself doesn't make a gun accurate or inaccurate, but the trigger interfaces with the shooter, so it really determines how you are going to shoot the rifle. Next up is the magazine well. I would say all that's pretty standard. Fits your mag just like any mag should go in there. Works just great. And the buttons, in my opinion, where it's supposed to be. One interesting feature about this gun that I actually really liked is that the magazine release, look at that, it's ambi. So that's pretty nice. Now, I'm a lefty, and so I appreciate features like this, but with an AR-15, I'm so used to reaching for this button with my right hand and finding that with my offhand, then I'm pretty familiar with that. So it's not a huge deal. If it wasn't ambi, it wouldn't be a deal breaker, but I really like that they did that. So that's great that Rock River put an ambi mag catch in there. So everything in terms of how the magazine went in and out seemed to function just fine. The only issue I had was on my very first magazine, I had a failure to hold open. Everything cycled just fine, but the last round, the bolt didn't lock back, it closed. And I don't think that was any fault of the gun, I think it was more fault of the magazine. But sometimes stuff like that happens in the first couple rounds of a new gun, just while parts are starting to get lubed up and starting to move around. So I can't really fault the gun for that, not a big issue. I think it was more of a magazine issue, if it was any issue at all. So let's talk about the magazine itself. So one thing I kind of can't get over is the choice of the magazine for this gun. Now this is based on a 308, it's in the LAR-8 series, so it makes sense that they would use a magazine based on a 308 gun. All of the LAR-8s use an FAL style magazine, an FAL metric pattern magazine. There are even variations within the FAL line. Now, I really wish this had actually come with something a little bit more common for this type of shooting. Again, it's based on a 308 rifle, so it makes sense that using a 308 based magazine would be a natural choice. I would say in the world of precision shooting, the Accuracy International magazine is very common, but mostly for bolt actions. But in gas guns, it would have been nice if this used something like an SR25 magazine, a regular just DPMS magazine, or my preference would probably be a PMag, just a 308 Winchester PMag. I think that would have worked really well. With these FAL magazines, yeah, there are definitely some of them out there, and you know, it's a fairly friendly choice for this gun, but it's a little bit weird to me, just because there's not a lot of innovation in FAL magazines. There's nobody making new clever designs of FALs. In fact, this is an old Thermold design. You know, it's stamped with Rock River, but I can absolutely tell that this is made by Thermold Manufacturing. And I've had some bad experiences with Thermold in the past. Now, I didn't have any with this, but just in previous range sessions of using AR-15s, the Thermolds have not been super nice to me. So the magazine choice, not a detriment if you like everything else about this rifle. They worked fine, but in terms of finding these, you pretty much need to go with the Thermolds or order some weird surplus magazine that's probably been sitting in a warehouse in Europe for a long time. So a little bit weird choice with the FAL magazines. I would have preferred a PMag, but that's my personal preference. You might not mind. Maybe it's something I just need to get over. Now let's take a quick look at the one feature that makes the controls of the Rock River LAR-8 series a little bit different than a standard AR platform. And that is the bolt release and bolt lock. So normally, you would have your ping pong paddle right here, but it's completely smooth on this side, so how the heck do you lock the bolt back, or how do you close it when it's locked back? So they've got an interesting design that again is ambidextrous, and I think it's pretty cool. So it's actually this little lever right here. So you pull back on your charging handle just like you normally would, and you push it up to lock the bolt in the rearward position. And then to move it forward, all you do is push down and it slams it home. Again, it's ambidextrous, that's found on both sides. And so I think that's a pretty clever design. Now it definitely takes some getting used to, because like I said earlier, I'm very familiar with AR-15 rifles, and so instinctually I reach for the ping pong paddle on the other side and it's not there, and I have to think, oh yeah, Rock River does it differently. So then I remember to go reach down here and it works just fine. So I think that's a training issue. If you want it to feel exactly like all your other ARs, then that's a negative for this. But if this is your primary gun that you're going to train on a lot, which I think it would be for most people who are going to spend this kind of bread on a rifle, I would say that's a pretty interesting feature. I didn't have any issues with that. It seemed to work well every time. The only issue I had with the bolt was that failure to lock back on the very first magazine, but I don't think that was because of this. I think that was because of this flimsy magazine, or because parts were still getting lubed up because it was the first couple of rounds. But that's an interesting control that makes the Rock River just a little bit different than some other rifles. All the other controls on the upper and lower receiver seem to be completely standard, which is just fine by me. So standard dust cover, it worked just as it's supposed to. Standard shell deflector, which I really like, because again, I'm a lefty. If it doesn't have a good shell deflector, guess where those rounds are going? Right in my freaking face. So I really like that the shell deflector works well. Now the ejection from this gun was very, very consistent. I had a nice, neat little pile of brass about 6 inches wide, about 6 feet away from me. So the ejection from this rifle, absolutely perfectly consistent. And of course it's got the forward assist. And do you know how many times I punched on that thing? Yeah, none. I think the forward assist tends to keep people into trouble more than it tends to help people out of a bind. Now, where I find it's most useful is if you don't actually close the bolt properly. If you're a little bit gentle with it and you don't slam it all the way home, then yeah, you got to push it forward. But this bolt, it seems to find its way home pretty well, and I didn't even need to do that at all. Pretty much everything else on here, from the safety to the takedown pins, everything else is pretty much standard. Next up is the rail/forend of this rifle. Now, a little bit of a mixed opinion here, and most of that is just personal preference. So first off, I can't knock the construction of this thing. 7000 series aluminum, really, really freaking rock solid. This is a very, very well-made handguard. Now I'm calling this whole thing, I use forend, handguard, and rail kind of interchangeably, but this section is what I'm talking about. So this whole thing is made very, very well. My minor tweaks, my if it were a perfect world type of complaints, are more with the design and less with the implementation. So when I first saw a picture of this, I thought that these were M-LOK slots. And that would have been cool if they were M-LOK slots, so you could kind of put anything anywhere. I've got several rifles that are either M-LOK or key mod. I actually own more key mod, which I kind of regret. It seems like M-LOK has kind of won that battle and is taking over the future, but key mod, is still pretty good, but these are neither. These are just ventilation slots. So I kind of wish that, you know, if they were cutting out all these slots anyway, that they had made them so that they were compatible with something. If they were compatible with M-LOK, that sure would have been nice. But nope, they're just there for ventilation. Now, they do have a beveled edge on there, which I really like. So there's no chance of, you know, cutting yourself on them. They're nice and smooth. It provides a comfortable grip, and they're really large, so it provides adequate airflow. And on a precision rifle, keeping your barrel cool, well, that's really important, because you don't want your gas block heating up, and you definitely don't want heat building up in your barrel. So these are primarily for cooling, and I don't mind that. This handguard, it's also pretty big around. If I had, you know, all my druthers, I think I would have liked it to be a little bit narrower, But if you're gonna set this on a barricade or anything like that, you probably want something big and sturdy. So it wasn't a huge issue to me. I would like to see it just a tiny bit narrower, but it was still very comfortable in hand. And this octagon design is generally a good one in my opinion. It helps you get a good grip on it as you're moving the rifle around. Now when you're shooting it, you're probably not going to be using this type of grip on, you know, a precision rifle. You're probably going to be laying prone or shooting this off of a bench. So really you don't need to put your hands on here when you're shooting it. It's just when you're carrying it. And that grip, that was just fine. Now this rail is completely smooth down here, which I like, but up front it's kind of a quad rail. So it's got your main rail that runs the whole length of the top. I think that's pretty standard. I think most rifles of this design are now going to that, just because people like the ability, you know, if you wanted to do a clip-on night vision or something like that, you could do it if you wanted to. And you've got options just by having this full-length rail here, and it doesn't get in the way of anything. What people tend to not like is the quad rail around here. So I like that they kept that bare, kept that nice and smooth and clean. Good call. Up front, they actually provided rail panels so that you can make it a quad rail, really in the only place that you would need a quad rail. So two short sections here, which are adequate for a flashlight if you wanted to run like a Steiner D-ball laser, anything on there, you absolutely could. And the one that everybody's going to be using, in my opinion, everybody should be using, a bipod for this type of rifle. They actually included a longer section here, so you've got lots and lots of different choices as to where you wanted to mount that thing. So great design on mounting these rails. It's 2 screws in each of these small ones, and they were hex head, which I really like. I'm not a big fan of all the Torx bits just because I found them easy to strip. So I like that they stuck with just a regular, just friendly, easy to use hex head. It's got 2 screws in these smaller sections and 4 screws in this bigger one. And these rail sections they feel very solid. And I like that a lot. So I think overall the rail design is pretty good. I wish it was a little bit thinner, and I wish these were M-LOK. But other than that, this thing is really sturdy. It did a great job. Next up is probably the most important component on any accurate rifle, and that is the barrel. And man, this thing has a very good barrel. 416 stainless steel bead blasted matte finish. I really like that matte finish. For being a stainless steel barrel, no shine to it at all. I really like that, especially for tactical applications, or if you were going hunting with this thing. It's not some shiny, highly reflective finish. It's a fluted barrel, which they were really aggressive with their fluting. They took away a lot of material, but they've got, you know, the fins that they left are very sharp. So I think that helps make it very rigid, helps it cool really fast. Now, there's some debate on how effective fluting is. Obviously, if you had this full diameter and didn't take away any material, that would be your strongest rifle. And if you had this inner diameter with none of these fins, that would be your weakest rifle barrel in terms of the rigidity and how much it's going to actually vibrate with your harmonics. So fluting is always a balance of those two things. How much can you make it act like that larger bull barrel by taking away material to make it the weight of that smaller, thinner barrel? In terms of the accuracy and balance, they did a great job on this barrel. It's a 24-inch on the 6.5, which seems to kind of be the right length. It's a 1-in-8 twist, so it's a pretty aggressive twist rate, and that's why I went with those heavier 140 grains. I think if this was a slower twist rate, something like the 123s would have been more accurate, but being that this is spinning it pretty quick, heavier bullets are going to tend to be more accurate, and I found that to be true with this barrel. And that 1-in-8 twist on a 24-inch barrel means you get 3 full rotations within the barrel, so it really helps you establish a good spin inside the barrel. And that kind of seems to be the formula for most of the precision 6.5s that I'm seeing. That 24-inch length with the 1-in-8 twist is a very common formula used by a lot of manufacturers now. My only real complaint about this barrel is that for a stainless barrel, it's not as stainless as I would have liked. Shooting this out in the humidity, there is some very mild rust I don't even know if you could call it rust, but you can tell a slight discoloration on these fins on the flutes. Now it's not bad. Bench gun shooters are going to tend to over clean their rifles. They're going to be meticulous about cleaning them, but a lot of tactical precision shooters, I think a lot of people actually do more harm by over cleaning their rifle than by letting it build up the right amount of copper fouling and all that. So I think a lot of people in this category of rifle, you know, aren't going to clean it every time they use it. So for a stainless barrel, I wish it had a little bit more corrosion resistance. That would have been nice. Not something that is a huge, you know, turn off, but it's something that kind of surprised me. It's something that I would definitely want to be aware of if I was running this rifle in any sort of serious capacity. Knowing that, yep, after I shoot this, I definitely have to take some, you know, LPS or something like that. Something that will just wipe this down after I use it, because there was a little bit of a buildup there. So in terms of the accuracy of this barrel, I love it. In my experience, I have not shot an AR barrel that I would definitively say is absolutely for sure more accurate than this one. Yeah, I can't say there's any AR barrel that's more accurate than this. It worked great for me. And I also like that down in here, you may or may not be able to see in there, probably not, but they used a really sturdy steel gas block, because that's important, because you want very consistent and reliable gas pressure on the way back. So you want something that's going to mate on there really tightly. You're not going to have any escaping gas. I don't think there's any issue with that. But it's really durable. I have no concern about that wiggling loose or melting or anything like that. Now, there's not an adjustable gas key. If you were going to run this thing suppressed, you might want one. Now, with this long of a barrel, you're definitely going to get a lot of gas pressure, and it's a rifle length. It's not a mid-length system, it's a rifle length gas system. So you're going to get a lot of gas pressure. So we made it to the end. Not quite the end of the review. Hang in there for just a little bit more, but the end of the rifle. Now this muzzle device, I actually like it a lot. It's kind of a combination device. It's a 4-chamber brake, reverse porting. This rifle really had no recoil, but the 6.5, not an aggressive rifle. It's a little bit less than a 308, so not any significant kick coming from a 6.5 to begin with. But you got a 4-chamber brake in here. You've got kind of a flash hider top, and you've even got some holes in the end to act a little bit like a comp too. And they even added this, you know, aggressive sawtooth type interface, kind of like a breacher barrel. I think one of the most important features of a muzzle device on a precision rifle is purely protecting the crown of the barrel. This way you've got, you know, after your crown, you've got all this other space around here. So really there's no chance that you're gonna bump into a barricade or something and put even a tiny little ding in that crown, because that target crown is very important for accuracy. So overall, I think this was an effective muzzle device. This rifle, I wouldn't spin it off. I would keep it on there. And I've replaced most of the muzzle devices on most of my AR-15s. Now, most of them come with just a standard A2 bird cage, which is not a bad muzzle device, but there's nothing particularly special about it. So a lot of times I replace those with something that's a little bit more effective, either as a brake or as a flash hider. But this one I would keep on there. It tend to work pretty well. I think they offer it with or without this brake. I'm willing to pay a little bit for this brake. It's nice, but on a 6.5, you know, that's not incredibly important. This thing isn't going to kick a whole lot, so reducing recoil is always good. I think anytime a gun kicks less, you can shoot it better. And people are going to, you know, these huge guns, these 50s, these 338, stuff like that. Generally, a smaller gun, you'll shoot it better. So that's what a muzzle brake does, right? It tames down that recoil to make it a little bit more friendly. So it's never a bad thing unless you're shooting with a spotter right next to you and you're gonna blow their ears out with a really loud brake. But I think this did a very good job of taming recoil without being excessively loud. So I would leave it on there, and I actually like this brake a lot. Let's talk about the price of this weapon system. So the Rock River, obviously without the scope, without the mount, without any of that, just talking about the rifle itself, the MSRP on this model is about $2,000. Now that's MSRP. Street price is always going to be different, and whether you get it, you know, with this plain stock or if you get it with the cheek riser stock, and then also if you choose to get this kind of combination comp and brake muzzle device or not, if you just get a regular flash hider on that, that affects the price a little bit. But $2,000 is a lot of money for a lot of people, and for, you know, for competition shooters, that's just getting started. But for a lot of people, you know, buying a rifle, there are a lot of rifles that are very accurate for less than that. But gas guns that are this reliable and this accurate, you're not getting a steal of the deal, but I think it's appropriately priced. I think you're paying for quality. I don't think you're just paying for the name. I think you're paying for a lot of really quality features. So at that price, would I say, you know, save your money, get something cheaper, and, you know, try to, you know, tweak every bit of accuracy out of it? Or would I say go with this? I'm more inclined to say go with something like this. In an AR-10, in an AR-15, components are very common and very, very modular. And something that may work really well on one AR-10 may not work as well on another AR-10. So I'd say if you're looking for this platform or rifle, you know, MSRP $2,000, which means street price probably $1,600 or so. That's an appropriate price, and I think you're getting good quality for that price. It's not cheap, but it's a great quality rifle. All right, thanks guys for hanging in there. I know this is probably one of the longest gun reviews I've ever done, but this rifle has a lot of interesting features, and I want to cover it in depth. I want to really, you know, give this rifle my due diligence and really take the time to cover all these features because, you know, it performed well, and I think there's a lot of stuff worth talking about here. So let's kind of back up a little bit and talk about just overall takeaways. So first, accuracy. Great. For a gas gun, frankly, I couldn't expect any better. They said 1 MOA out of the box. It pretty much shot that way for me. I generally think I'm a pretty good shooter behind a rifle. There are folks who are a hell of a lot better than I am. But I shot this thing just over 1 MOA out the 400 at 100 yards. It was definitely MOA. So accuracy, it was great. There was nothing to be left to be desired in a gas gun in terms of accuracy. Reliability, no failures to fire, no failures to eject, no failures to chamber. It was a very reliable rifle. In fact, the only issue I had was that one failure to hold open on the very first magazine I shot. And like I said earlier, there's lots of things that could have caused that. Could have been magazine, could have been just the lubrication still moving around. So I would say reliability was excellent. I can't knock the rifle for that one thing. Features, I would say pretty standard. The one feature that I would say is the two features I would say that are outstanding are that barrel and the trigger. Rock River did a great job with both of those. In terms of the receivers and all that stuff, you know, it's pretty standard. That different bolt to hold open, that's cool that they did that, but that wouldn't really influence my buying decision. If I was gonna look at a rifle that had that, if everything else was the same, if it had that or had a regular one, I probably wouldn't care either way. It's nice that it's ambi, but I'm gonna get used to a regular one. So that's not a huge issue. The stock was pretty good. I would suggest going with the one with the adjustable stock, or if you want to throw down a little bit more cash, get the cheap one, pull it off, and then put, you know, a Luth AR or something like that on there. The one thing that I didn't really like about my experience with this rifle is the weight, and I think some of that was this big chunky handguard. Because the receivers, you can't really take much more off of there and it still be rock solid, I don't think. And the barrel, I wouldn't touch the barrel. I'd leave that just as it is. Maybe making it a little bit narrower in terms of the overall outer diameter, and maybe even thinner material. Machining a little bit more out of there would reduce that weight a little bit, because this thing is 9.2 pounds naked. No scope, no bipod, anything like that. So all set up here, it's about 11 pounds and a little bit more by the time you have a fully loaded mag. Now, for what it is, that's not super heavy. Precision rifles can get crazy heavy. I mean, there are like PRS shooters running 25-pound guns, and that's like, they're using not only bull barrels, but they're using the barrel blanks. So to get that kind of crazy accuracy, yeah, a gun's gonna be heavy. Like that's just how it works. But for me, being used to run and gun ARs, moving up to something like this, 20-inch bull barrel that's quite a bit heavier, that pretty much forces you to use those big 20-round mags, it's a little bit heavy for me. And that's a part of my kind of final decision on this rifle. So if you're looking specifically for a semi-automatic precision rifle for $2,000 or less, is this one I would recommend? Yeah, I would. If that's what you're looking to spend, this is a very accurate, very reliable rifle. It performed great. And so that kind of leads me to my final decision on this gun. It's a T&E gun, so usually how that works, if you're not familiar, T&E stands for test and evaluate. Manufacturers supply equipment to writers, reviewers, industry folks, just to say, hey, what's your opinion on this? And that's not always for videos or articles. A lot of times that's for, you know, if a police department wants to test out a gun, see how they feel about it, something like that. So they'll send a T&E model that you can test, you can shoot, whatever. They say don't tear it up, but test it how you need to test it. So they'll send the T&E model, and then usually at the end there's an option to purchase the gun, usually at a slight discount, not anything huge. And so that's a pretty good test. After all my experience with this, am I buying this gun? And unfortunately the answer is no, because the discount is not significant. So, I mean, obviously if the discount was incredible, yeah, I'd buy it because we all love a good deal, right? But the weight is one of the biggest things. And I've got a lot of ARs that can shoot really, really well, really comfortably at a much, much lighter weight. And so my purpose is not necessarily running and gunning, shooting fast. I want accuracy. And so for this same weight and the same accuracy, I can get a bolt action. Well, for the same weight, I can get a bolt action that's way more accurate. Even though this is MOA, I can get a bolt action that's easily half that, half MOA. But I can also get a gun that's cheaper in a bolt action than this is with the same accuracy. So if you really want a semi-automatic rifle, is this a good one? Yeah, absolutely. But if your goal is just to get that accuracy, which mine more is, since I have a bunch of other ARs, I'm personally going with a bolt action, but if you're looking for a semi-auto that can absolutely run with most bolt actions, this is a good one. So I hope that kind of helped. I'm not going to end up purchasing this rifle, but I kind of wish I was. It was a hard decision. It was a very hard decision because this thing is awesome. And so I hope you learned a lot about this rifle. I hope you found the review interesting. I hope you're open to considering 6.5 in the future because it's a really cool cartridge, and this just got me excited about the 6.5 and about Rock River too, because they did a great job on this gun, and I appreciate them letting me review it. It's a solid rifle, so I hope you learned a lot. I hope you had fun. Go ahead and hit subscribe down below so that you can see my other videos, see some of my other product reviews, my other gun reviews, stuff like that, but also make it a point to actually check out the adventure videos, because all my experience, you know, my channel's not primarily about reviewing gear. I do a lot of gear reviews, but I'm out in the field a lot. I'm camping, I'm hunting, I'm shooting, and that's why I feel equipped to be able to talk about this stuff, because I actually use products thoroughly. So make sure to check out some of those fun videos too, where we're just getting out camping, all that stuff. So I appreciate you paying attention for this very long review. I hope it was fun. I hope you learned something. Until next time, stay safe, be free, and never stop seeking adventure.